Hey everyone, welcome back to Trident Wargaming. I'm joined with one of the original Battle Bros. I've got Dan here on the line.
Hello.
And we're going to be having a little bit of a breakdown from the Adepticon event. Unfortunately, I was not able to go, but Dan was, and he went down for some Adeptus Titanicus. Is that right, Dan?
Yes.
Very nice, very nice. Before we kick into that, I guess we'll just do a quick kind of little roundout on some hobby progress. What have you been working on the last week or so?
Well, right now, because it's like a week from your big 30K event, so I've just been getting my stuff together, touching things up. Basically, just doing that right now. That's kind of my big push to sort of get the event over and then move on to Titanicus, and because we're joint efforting doing the slow grow in Edmonton here, so start doing that, more Titanicus stuff, train more models, whatever, etc. So
absolutely, yeah, it's exciting. I know there's a lot of people that are looking forward to jumping into some sweet Titanicus action, and then earlier today we were kind of talking in the chat there about the supposed epic leaks, stuff. So it's, I don't know, exciting times. It could be a lot of cool shit coming down the pipe for us. So I just have to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Rumors, Gothic, Epic, all that stuff works all together. Hopefully. Yeah. Because, that's what we were talking about. People were like, oh, is Epic going to fit with Titanicus? Because I thought there were two different scales. But we'll figure it out when it happens, I guess.
Yeah. I hope it does, honestly. It'd be crazy for it not to. Yeah. It'd be wild. So, as far as hobby stuff for me, pretty much same spot where you're at. I'm just getting the last of these tiles done up for the event. Kind of getting some last little minute things all wrapped up. All the prize supports in, all the extra door prizes and stuff were bought over the weekend, so everything's ready to go that way. I've been going through all the totes and kind of making repairs and just getting everything ready to roll. 16 tables is a big chunk, so it should be a lot of fun to kind of see how everything breaks down and looks on the game day.
Yeah.
And I guess, we can jump right into it, I suppose. So, Adepticon, first time.
Oh yeah, first time for me. Because I live in Western Canada. LVO is so much easier, but this time I was like, I'm going to jump to Adepticon and try it out for once, because they're I don't know if they're the little brother, same brother, I don't know, but they're like the equal version of LVO, but on the East Coast. So definitely wanted to try it out this time, and they had Titanicus, so I wanted to jump into that because Titanicus, for one, is easy to travel. Two, it's generally fun because there's a lot of randomness to the game, so it's a lot of things can go wrong or right in your certain cases, and traveling was probably the biggest thing and why I wanted to do it. Plus, there was tickets. 30K sold out instantly, and so Titanicus was my calling.
Well, it helps that Titanicus is right up in your wheelhouse, as well as one of our resident Princeps Majoris, who crushes on the tabletop and does a good job of playing his Volpa. So it's always cool.
Yeah,
with
for
that.
sure.
Cool with that.
So I guess just go over a quick little experiences and tips.
Yeah.
Of just not even so much like Titanicus, but in my opinion, don't get the VIG or whatever it's called, the top tier package. It was just too much crap they gave me. I would say just buy a general mission ticket and jump into that. It's another tip is it's a BYOB, so you can just bring your own booze if you want.
Which is just wild. That just blows my mind.
Well, because LVO, there's guards literally, chopping the coffee out of your hand
Yeah.
And then when I went to Adepticon, there's guys with bottles of rum on their table, and there's people passing beers around like out of a 24 pack, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? It was like a college frat party there, compared to LVO where it was just like, no, you got to buy the $10 beer. And so I mean, like, there was just like a lot of things that were different. It is basically the same thing. It's just those were like the subtle differences. But yeah, overall, I had a pretty good experience because I ended up like more or less going by myself, and lots of friendly guys there. Didn't have a problem, other than the smell of flop sweat. But that's every gaming convention. But yeah,
absolutely.
So, I guess talk about the Titanicus events itself.
Yeah.
So, Adepticon does, they do it by day. So you buy a ticket for this day or this day or this day. It's not like a one package deal. I ended up buying, so the way it worked there, they had Thursday was a single day, Friday was a doubles, and then a Saturday was a single as well. I didn't end up doing the doubles. Because I ended up going solo, I didn't want to end up going there and then having to try and find a partner or, get stuck with somebody I necessarily don't know or, whatever. But it all worked out anyways. So the two single days, Thursday and Saturday, they're both good. So I decided to get into this Titanicus event, packed everything, forgot my terminals. The one key part of this game that really makes it like differentiate from 30K and 40K and whatever else is these terminals, and I forgot them. It's such a headache there. And this was like Thursday. I get there, buddies are telling me, the guys are like, oh, I'm talking to TO. TO's just like, what are you going to do? And I was just like, oh, I don't know. And there was guys listening, and they're like, why don't you use the app? Titanicus Tracker, I think it's called.
Yeah, Titan Tracker.
Yeah, Titan Tracker. And I downloaded it, got it running. For whatever reason, it would not work for me, and I'm just like getting super frustrated. And luckily, the Titanicus guys, they seem to be a lot more friendlier and easygoing. And the one guy I played, he was a real awesome dude. His name was Dave. He was like, you know what? Why don't you use my phone? And I'll let you, because he's like, I had Titan Tracker. I'll just let you use my phone. Just input your models. He was just like this nicest guy. I was like, man, are you sure? I was like, man, I can just like give you the win, and then I can try and figure out something for the next event. He's like, no, this is my first event. He's like, I want to, play out my games. He's like, I want to have fun. I just want to have like a good experience. I was like, awesome. So I was just like, you know what? If you will let me, I'll use your phone. And then, so he let me use his phone. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, sorry, man, you got to unlock your phone for me. Cause he had a time delay on it. So every time it shut off, it locked. And I'm like, oh man, can you unlock for me? And then it was just, I felt so bad for him, but he's just so nice. And he was just like, after the game and we were like talking, he was like trying to figure out things for me. And it was just like this great experience of like this guy I've never met trying to like help me with this, trying to find terminals. He gave me a notepad. Eventually I wrote down everything. I was trying to like draw, replicate a terminal with these notepads. Man, that was rough in the second game because I forgot a whole bunch of details, because in the terminals they tell you, this damage does this modifier, and then this your armor's this, and I was just like, holy crap. So after the second game I finished it, I went up to the TO and I was like, man, I gotta quit. He was just like, why? And I'm like, I'm just having a really hard time. I tried to draw these terminals out. The app's not working for me. He was like, don't quit just yet. I'll try and figure something out. So the TO during the break was running around grabbing terminals from his like backpack or whatever, and the guy let me use his terminals, and it was just like night and day compared to what I was doing, with the app and the piece of paper. So the third game, I actually played a full game, and I had a different experience. And then I came up to the guy at the end, and I was just like, this was like, I'm very thankful that he gave me his terminals, and I just was like, oh man, this was like, I didn't know what to say to him. I was just like, thanks. And he was just like, yeah, no problem. And he was basically like, my job is to make sure you have a good experience and a good time. He's like, I'm not worried about me playing or me, he's like, I'd rather stress for you and have you have a good time. And I was just like, that's sort of what a good TO should do, right? Is try to make sure everyone else is having a good time rather than being like, yeah, you're screwed, get out of here, right? Like, so
yeah.
And I was like telling him, I was thanking him, and I was talking to him, and I was like, so I don't have a game on Friday, but I have a game on Saturday. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Staples. I'm going to print off, because GW had like a PDF that they gave available.
Yeah.
At one point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Staples. I'll just print some off. He's like, you know what? Don't worry about it. You can use my terminals again. And I was just like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, man, just show up, have a good time. And it was just overall, I mean, it was just a great experience there, and it was very friendly. And there was 3 of them working for the TO. So it was a TO and then 2 like helpers. And I'm bad with names on it, so I can't remember them. But they were what made the event as good as it was. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It was a good thing, good event. So they, just to sort of like break down the event, or sorry, the actual events. So they had a, map grid system, like they had these little hexagon tiles.
Yep.
Of each zone, and each zone had like its own little thing. It was like a forest and a wasteland and a city. Anyway, so he had like this huge map, and so it was really cool, where each game affected each zone. So if a trader won here, then he got this many points, but if he stayed there and defended it, he got like double the points. So it was like this little thing where there was like this little like grid system where it was crazy. Like they did a lot there, and I'm just trying to think.
I remember looking at the pictures.
Yeah,
I saw pictures of the 3D printed. They had kind of like that planetary empire, just on a larger scale, which looked really cool.
Yeah, because they gave everyone a token. So you had this token. There was a trader token and a loyalist token, and basically, it was a trader planet, and the loyalists were coming to assault it. So the loyalists basically put their tokens down, and then the traders had to like find somebody on there, and that's how they sort of did the sorting system. It wasn't just by winners losers, it was just literally by random. So it was just the guy would put down his token, another guy would be like, oh, there's a token there, I guess I'll put my token there too, and then be like, okay, who's beta and who's number 3, and then those 2 guys would play each other. And I think it kind of worked out where I think I only heard one guy play another guy twice, but it was just like this really like neat. It was very overcomplicated, and thankfully they knew what they were doing to the point where they could like direct people and be like, hey, this happens when you do this, and then, because they gave us a player's pack, but it was like 10 pages long, I just sort of skimmed through it. I was kind of like, just, throw me at somebody and I'll just, play them. But yeah, once you start to get like the hang of it, it was just like very, very unique and awesome, actually. And it kind of worked out that there was an Aeronautica game. Aeronautica also affected the board as well because they dealt with it, traitors and loyalists, and they since I play a traitor legio, I guess Aeronautica, the loyalists won or swept that, so they ended up like gaining all these points on the second day and come back on the third day, and all of a sudden I'm looking at the points, I'm like, holy crap, it's almost equal now. And I was just like, holy. So, and it's just the games were just what they did is the players packs were just, they took the game, so each map had its own scenario, and then they had like a whole table full of them. So there was like wastes 1 to 5. So they're like, you just pick one, right? So there was never a time where I played the same mission twice. But all they really did was just take the missions, the secondaries from the match play, and incorporate it. So I think that was a really good way of them not forcing people to buy the match play, because I don't think half the guys there even know what match play was or even had the match play book. So I think that's a really good way for them to actually incorporate like match play missions, and just because they're very unique and they're very creative compared to the original 3 missions that come with the rule book. So
yeah, I know. After you were kind of briefly telling me about how the tile system was working for the event, it kind of made me think about how I was doing mine, and my main goal was trying to make sure it was simplistic, especially for an event like with 32 people that are coming on the weekend.
Yeah,
is I want to make sure that this Planetary Empire stuff is easy for people to grasp and to go with. Obviously, when we do the campaign, which will tie into Titanicus Slow Grow for July, there will be a little bit more granularity to it, so there's more detail.
Yeah,
I've been telling a lot of people that the event for the weekend is essentially just going to be, it's a primer. This is what you can expect. More detail and stuff coming later. I am looking forward to seeing how it all kind of works, because I can go over it in my head as many times as I'd like, but once it's out in the wild and once the players are mingling on it and you really get to kind of flex it and see how it works, it's good. It's a real stress test for the little mechanics I have in mind. So I'm looking forward to that. It sounded like Titanicus was a blast. I know, like I said earlier, it's pretty much your wheelhouse. So
yeah,
it definitely sounded good.
Oh, just to quickly go over, man, it was amazing seeing everyone's models. Like, there was lots of diversity there, and funny enough, there was 2 Legio Defensors. That's my like original Legio, and it was just laughing because I was just like, man, I almost brought them, and I would have been like the 3rd guy there with them. And it was funny because those 2 other guys, I'm like, man, I've never seen anyone else play it, and all of a sudden, there was 2 of them there, and I was like, man, I almost brought my 3rd one because I overheard them talking about it. And I'm just like, I said, I almost brought a 3rd one for the event, and they were just like, man, that's crazy that was like the only duplicates. Everyone had like their own, either they had their own original paint scheme or their own, Legio. So there was no like lots of the same thing. There wasn't a whole lot of corruptions, like people, putting spikes and stuff. So I guess I was the only guy there with spikes all over my Vulpa. But yeah, it was just an amazing time overall.
No, it sounds excellent. How would you rate, I guess, your overall experience for Adepticon in general?
Well, see, the Titanicus event was actually pretty good. I'd rate that pretty high. It was very friendly. They were very helpful. The missions and all that was top tier. So I'd put that a 9 out of 10. And the event itself, just because I was brand new to it, and I didn't know how things work. I'd rate it like a 6 out of a 7 out of like events, but it was just partly because of my ignorance and not knowing like, hey, this, like, you can do this and this, like, because I would have brought like a sandwich. I was scared to bring food in.
So. Yeah, well, and that's just from the LVO style, right? Like, I know even, like playing there, like, you essentially, it's hotel based, so there's unions involved, there's like labor agreements and everything where you have to have the hotel supplied food and drink, and you will pay an arm and a leg for that stuff, for the convenience. And then when you're telling me about the frat party there in the hall, people, no real need for the convention pass, like everyone's just kind of mingling, doing their own thing. I was like, holy fuck, like, it just sounds like spring break over there, which is cool. That's a neat way to do it. I imagine the event hotel probably doesn't have like a full contract or a staff thing like that. I'm not sure. For them to be able to get away, or I could not get away with it, but for them to be able to offer kind of like an open policy where you can bring your own booze or your own food, which is kind of really cool. I like the idea of that. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was definitely a unique experience. It was kind of cool being on the East Coast, and you get a lot more UK guys, so that was kind of neat to like, see that. And there's guys talking there, and it almost had like a nostalgia feel where there's guys that are like, man, we came here this year and this year and this thing happened at this time, and I'm like, man, this is like LVO, but and the guys in Las Vegas are like, oh yeah, these guys came up from here and here, and I was just laughing at it because it was just, it almost felt like home, but it wasn't home, because I've been to LVO like 6 or 7 times now. Yeah. And so going to Adepticon, it was just all new faces, and it was almost like the same experience because of the way the guys talk and the way, the player base is. And it just, after the first day of like being uncomfortable being by myself, it was just like, oh, these guys are all the same brothers, right? Just from the other side of the continent. So
yeah. No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, overall, it was a really good experience.
Oh, that's excellent.
No plane trouble, so that was good.
Well, that's always the big thing, right? Whenever you gotta check bags or go on the planes and travel around, it's traveling late is always nice.
Well, that's the problem with us in Western Canada is, LVO or Las Vegas is literally a 2-hour flight south, or a 8-hour flight to Chicago. Yeah. So it's just sort of like that toss up of, would you rather do the easy flight or the long flights?
Yeah. So. Yeah, no doubt. Well, no, that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
I guess that's it for me, unless you have any other questions or anything.
That was just my main. I just kind of wanted to know how you like the event itself and the Titanicus event and whatnot. I know I've got Arthur who's going to be jumping on here, also first timer at Adepticon, and he went through some painting courses and whatnot. So I was trying to get a little bit of a brief overview, as I was not able to come. So I'm just trying to gather as much goodness and as much storytelling as I can. So.
What do they say? You're trying to live by proxy?
Yeah, basically. I'm living vicariously through your EventCon stories. So, well, yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you very much, Dan, for jumping on and kind of,
no problem,
telling us all about it, and definitely look forward to chatting some more about some Titanicus slow grow in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Get some things rolling, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, I guess, I'll touch base with you later, and we'll wrap up for the next segment.
Awesome.
Catch you.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Alrighty, so segment 2 of our Adepticon review. Unfortunately, I was not able to go, but Arthur was, and he went down for some painting courses, and it was also your first time for Adepticon, right?
That's right. I've been to the LVO before, so it's not my first time at like a big international event, but this was my first time flying down to Chicago and taking part in Adepticon.
Very nice. Very nice. I guess before we get into meat and potatoes, everyone's favorite, we'll do some hobby progress.
Hell yeah, brother.
We've been working on the last week here.
Well, you know what? Just prior to Adepticon, I'm trying to like finish off all the Eldar I bought during Eldar release this time last year. And in the cabinet, I have like maybe 10 models left that are like built and not primed. So this last week I was working on Guardians. Those new Eldar sculpts, in fact, anything that's come that's new, is just a beautiful model. And it makes you not want to touch anything that's not updated yet. So like, I feel a pity for those Dark Eldar players. I feel a pity for anyone who hasn't had those like post-2017 models. But Adepticon was really good because I got about halfway through painting some of these Guardians. After I finished off doing like the Eldar units, like the jet bikes and the shining spears, and I mean the Warhammer community sponsored Falcon, right?
It's true.
Can't forget
Very
that.
true.
It's Mr. Warhammer community in the flesh. And it was really good. I went to Adepticon because I took back so much. I didn't finish those Guardians before I went. I came back. I applied pretty much every course I took to them, and they came out as probably the best infantry-based paint job I've ever done on models. Thankfully, to those Adepticon courses.
That's awesome. So money well spent, otherwise.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. We're there, right? I went to Adepticon.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks. So if you're coming out from the west side of Canada or the States, it might not be a direct flight. And it probably coming out of Toronto if you're Canadian, and if you're not, depends on where in the States you are, right? If you're Eastern Seaboard, you're probably getting right to Chicago, but if you're not, you're probably coming to like Houston or something. And airports are still a mess. So, you know what? Buy travel insurance, first of all, because on my way back, I did get screwed around. I had to overnight. It cost me, $300-400, but travel insurance covered 100% of it. So it's $40 well spent. Yeah.
Did you dirty in T-Dot, didn't they?
They did me dirty in T-Dot, and everyone says it's Pearson. It's Pearson Airport. It fucks everything up. But the flights down there were pretty good. I got a little day drunk in T-Dot, which is a good time. Made that flight to Toronto or to Chicago extra fun. And as soon as we landed, I had a painting course that night. I pretty much had enough time to get to my hotel. And the thing that was interesting about Chicago is that I was in the cab to my hotel, and I felt like I was feeling the G's in the seat and like getting twisted to the side and stuff. And I look over, the cabbie's doing 90K, and I'm like, oh, 90 kilometers, that's not that bad. And then I'm like, no. They don't do kilometers here. Buddy was going 90 miles.
Yeah.
That's about 150K. And on this interstate, people were blowing past us. So I went with my American friend, another guy. We did some painting courses together, and he says that Chicago's kind of famous for its fast drivers, which is interesting. But we speed down to our hotel. I pretty much got enough time to like put my bags in there and then head over to the venue. And so we get to the venue maybe about like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we don't have a painting course till about 8 or 9, but it's enough time to like gather your badge, kind of figure out who's who in the zoo, wander around, and we checked out the vendor hall. And we got about down maybe one side of it before they kicked us out because the vendor hall closes on Thursday night at 6 p.m.
Oh, shit.
I thought that was kind of weird. Like, I get early. It that it's probably because that people start getting like liquored up and they don't want people messing around with the vendors after a certain time of night, right? And that's fair. Yeah. And I think the vendor hall opens around 10 or 11, so they want to give them, 8 hours, and there's lots of other stuff to do after that time, so you don't need to be looking at the vendor hall for hours and hours and hours. Anyways, I see some cool stuff. I see some stuff I might want to pick up. And then it's about 7 o'clock. We got time to like grab a drink, wander around, and I got that painting course at 9. And the first painting course was done by it was something Studios. I'm blanking on the name right now. He's a former vet, United States military vet. He just did 20 years in the service, and he opened up his own painting studio and game store somewhere in the States. And his whole shtick was weathering. It was how to weather a model. And they gave us like this, like a panel almost. I'll see if I can grab it because it should just be here on the shelf. And most of these courses, they tell you that like everything's provided. So we got this.
Oh yeah.
And it was just primed pretty much, like the basic colors, and maybe like a highlight. And then they had a whole bunch of like 6 or 7 paints they put down in their palette, including like a texture paint. and like some weathering dust, and he pretty much showed us like a bunch of different weathering techniques. I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed that like this was our model, because this isn't really a model. It's great for learning a technique on, but it's not a model.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. You learned how to like make scratches, where to highlight them, like 5 or 6 different ways to make scratches and how they look good on every different armor type. Where to apply rust, how to make some scratches appear bigger than others. And then one thing that was really cool to this course, and I don't know when I'll use it, is they used a texture paint on it. And then from there you can like paint the rust. But after that, you can apply 2 or 3 different weathering powders. And this can all be done after. Like, you don't have to worry about doing like pre-layering for like applying like a rust effect. Because a lot of people do that, right? They use the like a brown undercoat and they put some orange on it, and then they like, what was the old salt and hairspray trick or whatever?
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that. There's a lot of really cool stuff made by companies like AK that can get it for the after. So it was a pretty good course. And then it was pretty much like go back to the hotel, chill out. My partner in crime there, Blake, had a course after that, like a 10 o'clock course.
Oh, wow.
Burning the midnight oil, yeah. And pretty much came, left, and then the next day I think we painted for like 14 hours. We had a course right at 8 a.m. And this was probably the coolest course. It was How to Paint Grimdark Skin by Little Legend Studios.
Okay.
The guy was straight out of the UK. He gave us an actual barbarian he had for this course. And the pose of the barbarian was designed for light to hit it in certain ways. And so that he could teach the technique of like light is going to hit it from this angle, so we're going to highlight here, here, and here. And the really cool thing about this particular course, and why I would recommend taking it if you ever get the chance online or at Adepticon with Little Legend Studios again, was you only used primary colors. Just red, blue, and yellow. And if I don't have the model here, but I got some pictures of it, it'll blow you away because you can do everything with red, blue, and yellow, and a little bit of white. And he was great. He was a great instructor. He saw that people had different techniques, and he would teach you different things, like certain reasons why you might want to change the way you're using your brushstroke, of like going up or going down, going towards the shading, going towards the highlighting, and a lot of color theory on like when you want to use blue, how you want to use your cool tones to cool down for a shading area, and why you shouldn't just put null oil in everything, right?
Yeah.
It takes away that temperature contrast. And it was a really good course. I really enjoyed that one. And that was I can't remember if that was a 2.5 hour course or if that was one of the 4-hour courses, because you had both. Later that day, though, that must have been a 4-hour course because we were in there quite some time. We had a 2-hour course with Ben Comet, and it was just called the loaded brush. You ever heard of the loaded brush technique?
Yeah.
What do you know about the loaded brush?
I've heard of it mentioned a few times on a couple different videos I've watched. Myself, like, I don't know if I've ever actually applied it or used it, to be honest with you.
Well, it's a blending technique. It's a wet blending technique. Wet blending is a tricky thing to master, right? You're trying to build that contrast gradient. And what they do here is they take a very watery, like the color you want to layer down to, in the ferrule of your brush in the base of it, and then you take a very, very thick, like a white, or the color that you would like to start at, the highlight, on the very tip. And then you start with that, and as you bring your brush down, you start slanting it like this, so you have like the base that's all in here, that watery stuff, as you bring your brush down, and it'll create this really nice blend. But here's where I was disappointed once again, where they promised models. They said, every course will give you a model. All he gave us was these wood blocks. So let me see if I can pull these up to practice our wet blending on. What's the good side? I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Oh, okay. I see.
And the white dots here are just to represent like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here I was blending from like green to blue.
Yeah.
Here I was blending from like blue to pink.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was a great way to learn the technique because you have like, so many sides on the cube. However many cube sides there are, I don't remember off the top of my head. I have to count them. It's kind of embarrassing. But you pick that up pretty quick. And then what? Like, when are you ever going to wet blend a solid flat surface?
Probably not ever.
Never, ever. And so when he was asked about that in the course, he said that in previous years, people found the technique kind of hard to master, and so they wanted to practice on a square block like this. But I'm like, all right, well, this means nothing until I actually try it on a model. So, like, give me a space marine shoulder pad. Give me a leg for something, an arm for something. Give me one of these dumb flat surfaces that's a little bit bigger. Like, Ben Comet is he's a wonderful painter. If you ever see any of his stuff, he's really good. That's why he invented the loaded brush technique, right? But he's a bum teacher, and if you're ever thinking about taking a course, do not take a Ben Comet course. And that's not just because of the model thing. My friend took a course for him for painting skin on the Monday. Maybe the Sunday, because they're closed Monday. And same thing. Wonderful painter, bum teacher. And then late that night, we had another course. And I think this is one I had solo. It was Sergio Calvo, which is one of those very famous Spanish painters. And the course was all about maximum contrast. It was about 50% theory, so him talking, and 50% application in a practical sense of what he was doing. And he gave us one of the, it's like a Daughter of Cain model, but not Daughters of Cain. It's one for the sub games like Warcry or whatever the kill team of Age of Sigmar is. And while the model I came up with this course wasn't looking like a good model that was painted, I learned the most from this guy. And he was all talking about how miniature painting is all about creating contrast. In whatever way you would like to create contrast. That's the way you make a mini look good. And there are basically different ways to create contrast. You can do that through value, so the application of black or white, temperature, so like how warm or cold. And he mentioned when you're using temperature that your eyes are drawn to warm temperature, and they're drawn away from cool temperature. And so if you ever want to hide things, you put that in cool tones, so your shadows are normally going to be cool. You don't shadow with warm temps. But the things you want people to look at, those want to be warm temperatures. And if you ever seen like a really eye-catching model, they use that. And I never thought about that.
Yeah.
He talked about other ways to have contrast. So we talked about value. We talked about temperature. You could do texture. So I don't know if you've ever seen the Sylvaneth Ariel the Everqueen, the beetle.
Oh yeah, yeah.
On the bottom of that, they hand paint texture lines for that beetle carapace underneath, and it's a lot better looking than just
flat.
Like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see texture used like sometimes really well for like leather or clothing. So it's just a different way you could add contrast and make a model more interesting and have like value to look at. And then of course, color, right? How you could have like an opposite color to make a nice contrast. Like if you look at a color wheel, using the color on the exact opposite side will create that contrast. But when it comes down to miniature painting, if you want a really good looking mini, contrast, dial it up to 100. Find a way to make it look good using contrast. And he's a wonderful painter. He was pretty funny. And actually, it was kind of funny. Someone stole his model that he was using to teach midway through the course.
Oh, that's crazy.
And he's like, what are you going to do with this? Put it on eBay? Like, so that was a really good course. And then the next morning, I had a really interesting one. And I can't remember the name of this studio either, because she was a professional makeup artist, and it was how to paint makeup on models. I paint a lot of Sisters of Battle, I paint a lot of Eldar, there's a lot of feminine faces in that, and I wanted to kind of up my face game a bit. And so she gave us a bust. And I'll throw some pictures here so that you could put them in the podcast.
Sure.
And what the gimmick was is she was painting live makeup on a person, and then the rest of us would apply those same techniques using the bust of the model. It was a bit of an advanced course, so if you're not someone who's done a lot of skin tones, if you can't create like a basic skin tone and highlight that, and then shade it, it might be too advanced. But it was like after you've painted your model, and you've highlighted like your cheekbones, and you've resetted like down here, and you've added contour and whatnot, how to do like eyeshadow, eyeliner. If you want to add like fancy shit here, like sometimes the girls do.
Yeah.
One of the things I never thought about for when I paint models, especially the girls, was that, I mean, we have beards, or I have a beard, you don't. But this is actually a point of highlight right here. And usually the chin is too. I'm used to like doing up here on the face of the cheekbone and maybe some on the forehead, but I never thought about like, well, I got the nose, but this being a point and this being a point as well. And mind you, you can change where you'd like to highlight if you have the light coming from a different angle. But if you're doing like a dead-on face, that's how you would do that. And I think if you were to take one thing away from that course, it's glazing. So like a lot of times when you see makeup on models, they have like a slight tone hue on the cheeks or something like that. But it's really hard to get that. So you need to use like the thinnest level of paint and the highest level of water to get that mix. And then just millions of little layers until you get the amount of that filter layer, whether that's red or blue or purple or pink, you want on that model. And the last course I think we took later that day was a course called Bird Shit. And his whole gimmick was how to make realistic looking like dioramas with bases. And I have this one too. And his whole shtick, it was kind of like a weathering course, but he was talking about how you want to avoid something called the uncanny valley. So that whenever you look at a base and you're like, oh man, something's just not right, it's because that's not how it would appear to be in real life. And so he started off by giving us an actual like scenic base that he created, but it didn't look like anything. It didn't have any texture on it. It had like a bit of rubble, but not a lot. And the first thing we did was similar to that weathering course. We started by adding scratches, and like we go to put like 2 or 3 on, and he's like, "Whoa, stop! Now, before you continue, where do you think scratches are going to be in this piece? Where is sand and wind hitting this? Is there water coming from anywhere? Is anyone walking on it?" Think of those types of things. And then we did some sponge weathering, which is a very popular technique. And then he's sponsored by AK. So what this mostly was like a workshop of using 30 different AK products. If you are weathering your models and you are not using AK, you are doing it wrong. They're the best in the business for that.
Yeah.
Like straight up. Like the Winsor Newton being the best paintbrushes or whatever. If you're weathering models, use AK. And in the end, we created something that looks like this, and I'm not sure if the camera will focus on it. There's like even a bird's nest in here. The camera's not picking it up, but we even got the namesake of the course in there. There's like what appears to be bird shit in certain spots. Overall, that being my last course, one of the coolest things, and one of the reasons I would recommend going down, was we got to try out 100 different types of paint.
Yeah.
So you see, like on these YouTubers, they're always talking about, oh, try out Chimera paint, or try out the new Monument Pro acrylic, and then they say things like, well, what is a heavy density acrylic? What does that mean? And then they pour these paints out, and you start realizing, oh wow, that's a totally different application. Why I would use that over everything else. And it was really cool to try all these different products out. I think the more you start painting and the more you start taking these courses and learning, you start realizing that like one brand isn't always necessarily better than another. Citadel has some great paints. I really like Scale. They have some great paints. But in specific circumstances, the application of one paint is better than another. Scale, they have shitty whites. Citadel, they have shitty whites.
Yeah.
I love Citadel's purple paint. I love their gloss. They don't have a matte effect. If you're doing matte, maybe you want to go to Scale. Maybe you want to go to Monument Pro. If you want a heavy density acrylic, well, there's nothing better than Chimera for that. But you wouldn't use that heavy density acrylic if you're trying to do, I don't know, blending layers on a power sword, unless you really want to thin that paint down, in which case, there's a better paint for that.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
That ended up being my Adepticon experience. On the way home, the flight got screwed up. As I alluded to, I had to overnight in Pearson. So if you are going to travel anywhere like that, first of all, if there's an event you can fly direct to, do that one. LVO's got the same painting courses, it's the same people, and while it's not like the big hobby event, it's going to have the same stuff, and if that's direct for you and it's cheaper, do that. It's going to be a better experience. But if you really want to go to Adepticon, buy travel insurance, I guess, is the lesson learned here.
No doubt, no doubt.
It was cool to see the Golden Demons. You see them like, there's people like on Instagram and whatnot doing the Golden Demon compendiums, and that's really cool to see. It's nothing like seeing them in person. And I think everyone I took a course for took a golden, or had applied for golden demons. And I mean, Sergio Calvo, the one I learned all that contrast stuff from, he won 2 categories. My friend took another course about like painting skin tones or OSL, and it was done by this Coho person, and she didn't win a category, but she can paint better than anything I ever could. And then one of the things you end up looking at with these golden demons is that there is subjectivity to it. And there's a whole reason they set up a curtain where they have a whole bunch of paint judges go back and they pick which ones are the best and which ones are the winners. And it's kind of funny to listen post Adepticon at like the YouTube channels for some people who submitted stuff. And they try not to trash talk who won in certain areas, but you can tell that they're hurt because it is subjective. And even in locals, painting competitions are subjective based on the judge, and no rubric will ever fix that subjectivity. Maybe that's okay. I don't know. But that's pretty much my Adepticon experience.
Overall, how would you rate Adepticon out of 10?
It's kind of a non-answer, but I think you can't rate it because it depends on what you want to make of it.
Yeah.
Ben Comet's class, 0 out of 10. A little fucking wooden block's not a miniature. Don't ever take his course. He's a bum. Sergio Calvio class, 20 out of 10 because there's no YouTube video that would have had that same level of learning for me.
Yeah.
Little Legends class, 10 out of 10. I would take all of his courses. I actually even thought about subscribing to his Patreon for painting lessons. Like, he was a great teacher. But it's what you make of it. If I was to go again next year, I wouldn't just go with one friend. I'd want to go with 5.
Yeah.
And we ended up cheaping out and getting a hotel nearby that we could walk at, but the hotel was shitty. Like, you know what? Go spend, if you're already going down, go spend the $300 or $400 or $500 extra dollars, get a nice room. And treat yourself. It's not as cool if you're trying to do it on a budget. It's a lot more fun if you're willing to like go out and have the nice things. And if you're with a group of friends, you're gonna go out for drinks. You're gonna make a party of it. It's gonna be a great time.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's kind of a non-answer. I don't know. 8 until Air Canada fucked my flights up. So then 5, and then I got my insurance to pay for it. So we went back up to a 9.
That's okay. Hey, these things happen. It happens.
Exactly it.
I haven't had it happen direct, but I also haven't had any connection flights forever. So
if you can fly direct, fly direct. And you know, I bought my tickets on Boxing Day, so I got them rather cheap. You can always look for sales. That's a way to save some stuff too. For the cost conscious, you can definitely share rooms, and at all these different cons, there's always a cheaper room somewhere. Uber. Don't buy cabs. The Ubers are cheaper and better now, which is weird, but it's true.
Yeah, no doubt.
No.
No, it's excellent. That's good. It sounds like a good experience. I definitely find myself leaning more towards going for painting courses, just try different things out and getting exposure to all the different artists out there.
You know what? Having played in one of those massive, like, multi-100 people events. When I went to the LVO, I think there was 600 people playing, and I went down to play that one time. This last time they had 1,000. And even at Adepticon, when you see like the rows and rows and rows of tables interconnected so far that you're never getting across to the other side of the table unless you're going under or over, these cons are not the greatest experience for gaming. They're experiencing for hanging out with your friends, making some memories.
Yeah.
And honestly, the painting classes are top-notch. I had a way better time taking painting courses than I ever would have playing, and probably losing in, like a Warhammer event.
Yeah.
And next time I go, I'd like to go down with some friends, and I think that if I was going to go, I'd like to plan it months in advance. This was a bit of a last-minute thing. We only decided like maybe 2 months in advance. And I would suggest that everyone come down with a Golden Demon category entry, or like plan to take part in the Resin Beast, or as a thing you do with friends.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I could take back from Adepticon, and I really enjoyed there, was the entrance categories for painting competitions. None of our local tournaments have like categories. It's all just you have a 2-day event and you bring your army down, and then whatever the best army wins. But it would be really cool to see like single model, diorama, duel, and well, it may not be feasible for every single tournament organizer to do all that because that's an individual trophy or a ribbon or something. hell, I would pay money to participate in a painting contest locally, if it's a $10 entry or a $5 entry, right? Like, not everyone would, but it'd be cool to see something like that locally.
Well, it's definitely something to put on the back burner and think about, right?
Absolutely.
I'm always down to do stuff like that. Always. Well, that's awesome. No, it sounds really good. I know Dan also had a really positive experience, and it sounds like you also had one, minus the T-Dot situation.
Minus the flights. Minus the flights, it was a great experience. I'd do it again.
Well, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
I think that pretty much covers the experience. That you should go research the painters, check out what they've done if you're going down for the painting courses, and don't be afraid to take weird ones, because like you can find the same other stuff on YouTube, but if something's advertised as being kind of out there and you're like, I hadn't ever considered that, that's going to be another toolbox in your toolbox, really, the tool in the box for a technique that you're not going to pick up otherwise.
Yeah.
So take the weird shit, embrace the time, and even if like you got a bit of an ego in painting, like I do, try to put that aside, because you're learning from the masters, right? I've never won a golden demon.
No, nor have I. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. If I could paint like I can now, back in the 90s, man, I'd have a fucking Slayer sword if you've seen some of those entries.
That would be killer.
The people who are winning them now, it's wild.
Yeah.
I'd still like to participate, though. Throw my name in the ring.
It'd be nice. The feedback you get alone, I think, would be worth the experience.
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, awesome, man. Much appreciated for coming on and sharing your Adepticon story with us.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Excellent. And if you recognize Arthur, make sure you check out his pages. You got Charging from Deep Strike Studios blog, and then his Instagram, where you can also see the Warhammer community Falcon.
That's right, Mr. Warhammer community himself. And I have to update the bio because now we are the 13 times award-winning.
That's right, just off the weekend. That's right, yeah, crushing it.
And most importantly, the undisputed doubles champion. Undisputed doubles champion of all time. One half.
Oh, shit. Awesome. Oh, killer, man. Well, yeah, thank you again for coming on. We'll definitely have to get you and Scott on here to chat some 40K 10th edition and just events and everything else.
Well, you know what? We got a big tournament this weekend. We've been getting a lot of practice in it. It's the Spring GT for Nemesis, so we're hoping to take home some hardware there.
Yeah.
And this Thursday is going to be a balanced Atlas League that's going to shake up the meta. So
it'd be nice. Check it all
out. Root for the team. We're part of the Saga stable for the time being. So I don't think we've gone to an event without one of us taking home some kind of hardware yet this year.
Yeah.
That's good. So we're hoping we can take some stuff down at Nemesis.
That's what it's all about. Definitely good luck on that. Awesome.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure.
Always a pleasure.
Catch you later. Hey everyone, so we're just on the final segment here of our kind of short but sweet little episode here this week. Essentially, you just heard kind of a first-hand two-part segment of like a mini Adepticon review. A couple other people I'd like to try and get online and chat with. Just with schedules that wasn't working out, so I want to take this time just to answer a couple questions that I had. Some people asking me about the Iron Without event series and what kind of things I have planned for it, and especially with this campaign that I'm going to be doing locally, which will no doubt expand into this cross-Canada crusade. So essentially, with the actual event, we're going to be having the system of Planetary Empire tiles all set up, which is going to be a planet essentially on a 2D surface, and each 3-pack of planetary tiles is going to represent one table at the event. Now, after the event is done, whatever the territories are, if they're in dispute, if they're taken, if they're not, that's how the campaign is going to start. This is essentially the primer. This is going to be the big kickoff. Once the campaign starts, I'm going to have a few different groups, including like our own local Warrior Lodge group, and we're going to be keeping track of games, and it'll be basically Loyalist versus Traitor faction. We'll have a game pretty much once every 2 weeks for about a month and a half. And the goal is to essentially do it from July 1st until mid-December, which lets us have 12 games at four different phases throughout the campaign, at which point in mid-December it'll end, and then we'll probably roll into a Zone Mortalis style event / campaign, which will help kind of progress the story. Or if the rumors are true and we get epic, we might end up going epic as well. For right now, the campaign is meant to accommodate Titanicus, regular Zone, or like regular Heresy games. And then as we continue to move on, some of the theaters will open up to be very specific. So we might have a whole like 2-phase or a whole mini campaign dedicated to just Titanicus, or maybe to tank warfare, or like APOC style games, something like that. Something that we can keep evolving the theater and keep it fresh. I think that's important to always have the story going somewhere. And after a while, you know, if you just always do you're attacking a planet, here we go. After the third or fourth time, I think that gets stale, and probably gets stale even before that, to be honest. So if there's ways we can switch things up, be it in a theater, be it like a Zone Mortalis, Centurion mode, you name it, that's definitely something I'd like to do. I'd like to eventually, once that Traitor Astartes Assassin drops, I'd like to try and have a way where you could unlock that in different factions, so the Loyalists can get a Knights Errant that they could build and convert themselves. We'd supply probably a 3D printed shoulder pad, or at least a decal of some sort, so they can make their own Knights Errant under Melchidor's sigil. And then the Traitor side would be able to take this assassin, demonic assassin kind of force multiplier in their list, which would be a lot of fun. I think it would just add another layer of cool, essentially, to the campaign. I've also toyed with ideas in Zone about having remakes of like Saturnine with the kill zone inside like the Saturnine wall, where you have teams, essentially kill teams of Loyalists set up in this 4x4 or 4x6 board, and then you have Traitors popping up with termite drills, and you rolling off in the grid to see where they're actually going to appear. Stuff like that, I think is just totally too much fun you can have. And essentially the best part about it is you can make these stories your own the whole time. So not only can you play in these and take pictures and, you know, talk about them, write about them, but now you can actually kind of start creating like a history for your group. And with this Cross Canada Crusade, essentially what we want to do is start expanding it to these different local groups that are all, you know, in Canada, and really start kind of pumping up the heresy scene here at home, which is awesome. If you can get like-minded groups together, rolling dice and enjoying each other's company, honestly, it's good things for everybody. I think there's a term, I believe it's a rising tide helps all ships float or rise, something like that, which is essentially what we're trying to do. Everyone who gets involved is going to benefit in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be really good for heresy as a whole, especially for us here at home. So it just adds a couple different ways of doing that. You can also, you know, have painting competitions that are going to be kind of floating in with that. You have conversions, just different layers of potential prizes And then you're also growing your community as well. There might be people who didn't jump on the heresy train for a slow grow that might want to jump into the slow grow Titanicus stuff, which is going to be part of the campaign. They might want to, you know what, I only want like a small combat / boarding patrol box. Perfect. Jump in zone. Zone Mortalis would be right up your alley. I use those terms loosely just because most people kind of know what you're talking about. If you say a combat patrol box or whatnot, Games Workshop is good at pushing the names and their product. I think people are familiar with that anyways. So getting back to the campaign, essentially after each round at the event, there will be a blue or red chip, a token that gets placed on the territory, and that's to let us all know that it is under Loyalist or Traitor control. If it's tied or contested, there will be nothing there. If you really wanted to get extra creative, you could start adding like a yellow token for a successionist faction, which could be Mechanicum, Astra, Black Shields whenever they get rules, just other things, right? You can always have different warring factions. That doesn't always have to be, Loyalist, Traitor, Red, Blue. Just, again, another way to switch it up, another way to kind of just tell your own story, which is always good. I think that's a big benefit. The more you can make it relatable to your active player base, the better. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Essentially, another one of the questions here was, what was the thought process behind the Iron Without event leading into a campaign? Honestly, it was basically just to give us a starting point, something that everybody could participate in over the course of 2 days, and something that we could track, something that we could show, building up the hype. And after the dust is all settled, now we have something that we're able to actually put out there on paper. We can take a picture, put like a digital overlay on the map, and show exactly where this event has led. And we can find out the fate of the Desperation system here at the end of mid-December, which will be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be really good. There's lots of event swag kind of coming with people's ticket purchase. Let them really feel part of this campaign. So I have really high hopes. I won't give too much away though. I kind of want to make most of it a surprise for the weekend. I think only a couple people here and there have seen bits and pieces of what the actual event swag is going to be. No one's actually seen it all yet. So it should be a really good way to kind of show appreciation to everybody jumping in by having these tangible items that they can use in their games all the time and feel like they're playing into a larger narrative, which they are. It's going to be our narrative, forging our own stories. So, that kind of wraps it up for this week's episode. Short, sweet. After the event, we'll have a big heresy like megasode coming out. There's been some new stuff dropping. I know we've got tank commanders, we've got different plastic vehicles dropping. There's been a lot of different stuff kind of coming down the pipe, so we want to have like a big download of all the heresy stuff that's been going on. And then later on, after that, we'll probably start talking a little bit 40K, building up that 10th edition hype. So definitely, stay tuned. Keep writing questions in. I love questions like this. It's nice just for us to, be able to assess and really address your questions directly. So definitely love it. We might even, if we get enough every episode, we might even have a question period where we start with your questions from last episode or the week before. That just to, have a small 5-10 minute segment, answer a bunch of questions, and it lets you feel like you're actually being listened to. And I think it's a lot more personable than throwing it in an email. So we appreciate the emails, obviously, but I'd rather answer you guys directly like this. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we will definitely catch you after the event. Stay tuned for a ton of pictures, and there's also going to be a big unboxing video of the stuff we got from Battle Bling, which stay tuned. We're going to it's going to be awesome. So probably have pictures of the Battle Bling stuff on Friday. All right, catch you later.